Hare Krishna, the seventh chapter, Knowledge of the Absolute. And we've been reading about that. It begins our study of Bhagavad Gita's devotional portion. And this is the 16th verse that we're going to be reading. In fact, I may just move over to the 17th as well. And the 16th talks about who are the people who take up bhakti-yoga. Different people have an inclination for different type of yoga. So who are those who actually want bhakti? And Krishna gives us the answer like this. He says, Chaturvidha bhajanti mam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasur ortarti jnanischa bharatarshabha. And the translation is, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Remember, this chapter is called Knowledge of the Absolute. So here, Krishna is talking about four types of people who take to bhakti, to devotion, also called devotional service. The distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and someone who's searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Okay, distressed. People often turn to God because they're in some kind of difficulty. Either they've lost their wealth, which may be happening to a lot of people now during the pandemic. They're lost a family member. They're sick. They have received notice from a doctor that they're terminally ill and they're going to pass away. All of a sudden, people who've neglected bhakti to this point, neglected devotion to the Supreme, now they become a little more conscious that, well, I need to look for something of more substance and value because these material things that I've invested my life in, they're lost. So distressed people, and of course there's all different types of distress. Desire of wealth. Some people read, well, one of the results of bhakti and one of the results of yoga is that you can acquire all kinds of wealth and opulence. You can acquire wealth and opulence in this world, and not only that, but in the next life, because by doing the pious activities of bhakti, you become elevated. I can attain some kind of other more elevated celestial position. I can attain a celestial position on another planet. I can reincarnate in some other dimension where I gain great wealth, or I come back to this world and I become a very rich person. I become a politically influential person. You become wealthy in terms of power. But generally people think of wealth in terms of money, in terms of jewelry, wealth, land, and so on. So it's possible. For instance, Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, the author of, translator, and the author of the commentary of Bhagavad Gita, he said that the Beatles, for those of you who are my age or the next generation down will remember, they were all yogis in their last lives who wanted wealth. So they got it, and they got fame that came along with it. And inquisitive. Sometimes people want to know, well, what is this actually all about? I'm sort of curious. I don't know. Let me try it out. So sometimes people enter into relationships, and in this case, they enter into the practice of bhakti because they're curious. I've heard that by chanting Hare Krishna, you become very peaceful. You get peace of mind. Ooh, let me do that chanting. And of course, that's also for the distressed, because distress means that my mind is very disturbed. So I get peace of mind by chanting. So let me chant the mantra, because especially nowadays, people are really distressed. So they're looking for peace of mind. And he who's searching for knowledge of the Absolute. So the next verse, which I wanted to turn to, and I will, even though briefly, it just highlights this point that out of the four, this person is the best. The person, he's looking for answers to the questions of life. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where is the world around me? Is it really out of just some big explosion? Does it really have a creator? Is there some sense to this world that seems to be very organized? It's only human beings that are disorganized and are nonsense. So this person is the fourth person who comes, someone who's really searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Is there a supreme being? Is there a supreme controller, creator, and what's his relationship? And how do I get to know him? Well, if I read the Bhagavad Gita, it says you do kirtan, you chant Hare Krishna, you read Bhagavad Gita, you acquire transcendental knowledge, you live a pious life, and then you'll get to realize or know or see the Supreme Person face to face. You can do it, but there's a process. Person says, really? Well, I really want to actually see that Supreme Person face to face, so I want to follow this process. He's curious. And as I said, next verse says, of these four, distressed, wants wealth, he's inquisitive and looking for knowledge of the Supreme, one who's in full knowledge and who's always engaged in pure devotion is the best, for I'm very dear to him and he is very dear to me. So he says, of the four, the person who's coming for knowledge, he already is exhibiting a certain type of attraction. I've heard about Krishna, and yes, this is what I want. I've tried the chanting. I understand what it's about, and I really want to make this my life. This is already a certain attraction that's there, and because, as remember, bhakti yoga is about attraction. It's about love. So here Krishna is saying, well, he already has a sort of a preliminary stage of this type of attraction. He's the best of all of them, and his motive is the best motive. And it is the most stable motive, because unless you have knowledge, and that's described in subsequent verses, unless a person has knowledge, the distressed person can come, but he won't stay unless he also knows, well, what am I doing here? Unless you know what I'm doing and what it's about and how to do it and what's the result of that. Unless you have this knowledge, you won't stick with it. So people leave yoga systems and they also leave bhakti. But a person who has knowledge, they stay. And that's why I'm recommending reading the Bhagavad Gita, because then you not only come to bhakti yoga, but you stay in bhakti yoga. And that's it for today.